Have you ever noticed how some zodiac signs just get under your skin? Not because they did anything wrong, but because something about them hits a nerve you didn't even know you had. Maybe a Scorpio's intensity makes you uncomfortable. Maybe a Virgo's criticism stings more than it should. Or maybe a Sagittarius's freedom makes you feel insecure, judged, or not enough. Whatever it is, the reaction is instant and deep, and there's a reason for that. Today, we're talking about why certain zodiac signs trigger you emotionally, psychologically, and even spiritually, and why these reactions feel so personal. The truth is, certain signs in the zodiac don't just challenge you, they expose the parts of yourself you're not fully comfortable with. In this video, we're going to break down the real astrological mechanics behind emotional triggers, the specific signs that activate your shadow, why some people feel like mirrors you'd rather avoid, and how these triggers are actually invitations for growth. This isn't a sign bashing video. This is deep psychological astrology, the kind that helps you understand yourself on a level most people never explore. So if you've ever had that instant reaction to someone, good or bad, stay tuned. After this video, you'll see your trigger signs very differently. Chapter 1: What a trigger sign actually is. Most people think triggers come from someone doing something wrong, but in astrology, a trigger has almost nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with you, your chart, your past, and your unconscious patterns. A trigger sign is simply a zodiac energy that activates something inside you that you haven't confronted yet. It can be insecurity, fear, defensiveness, jealousy, avoidance, or even unresolved childhood dynamics. You might feel unusually irritated, suddenly insecure, judged or exposed, intimidated or overwhelmed, or emotionally reactive in a way you can't explain. And you're left thinking, why do I feel this way around them? Here's the truth: astrology describes 12 fundamental energies of the psyche. You won't embody all 12, which means the ones you suppress, deny, or underdevelop are the ones most likely to trigger you when someone else embodies them strongly. This is why a confident Leo might trigger someone who's uncomfortable being seen. A practical Taurus might trigger someone who struggles with stability. A blunt Aries might trigger someone who avoids conflict. An analytical Virgo might trigger someone who resists accountability. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It's about energetic imbalance. Every zodiac sign has qualities you've mastered and qualities you've abandoned. So the signs that trigger you are rarely random. They're the ones that reflect the parts of yourself that feel unfinished, unhealed, or unclaimed. And this is where the astrology becomes fascinating because we can actually predict who will trigger you based on four main patterns: opposite signs, elemental clashes, modality differences, and the hidden shadow sign dynamic. These four categories create your personal activation points, the energies that feel too close for comfort, too honest, too exposing, or too tempting to ignore. So now that we understand what a trigger sign is, let's dive into the first and most powerful type of astrological trigger. Chapter 2: Opposition Triggers, the mirror you don't want to look into. When it comes to trigger signs, nothing hits harder than your opposite. Opposite signs sit directly across from each other on the zodiac wheel. And astrologically, that means two things. They contain the traits you lack or suppress. They bring out the parts of you you're not comfortable owning. Opposites aren't enemies, they're mirrors. But mirrors can be uncomfortable when you're not ready to see what's being reflected back. Let's break down the oppositions and exactly why they activate such deep emotional reactions. Aries and Libra, me versus we. Aries triggers Libra by being too direct, too blunt, too impulsive. Libra triggers Aries by being too considerate, too cautious, too focused on others. But underneath, Aries forces Libra to confront their fear of conflict, while Libra forces Aries to face their lack of patience and tact. It's not personal. It's the clash between independence and harmony. Taurus and Scorpio. Security versus surrender. Taurus triggers Scorpio because Taurus is stable, predictable, grounded. Everything Scorpio secretly craves but fears losing control over Scorpio triggers Taurus because Scorpio is intense, emotional, and transformative, threatening Taurus's comfort and routine. This opposition hits where it hurts: trust, control, vulnerability, emotional safety. Gemini and Sagittarius, facts versus truth. Gemini triggers Sagittarius with details, questions, inconsistencies, and logic. Sagittarius triggers Gemini with big picture thinking, blunt truths, and freedom that feels chaotic. Under the surface, Sagittarius exposes Gemini's fear of commitment. Gemini exposes Sagittarius's fear of accountability. Cancer and Capricorn. Emotion versus responsibility. Cancer triggers Capricorn by expressing needs Capricorn avoids. Capricorn triggers Cancer by withholding emotions. Cancer feels entitled to. This is where emotional security and emotional self control collide. Both sides feel judged by the other's coping style. Leo and Aquarius. Ego versus detachment. Leo triggers Aquarius by demanding attention, warmth, and emotional engagement. Aquarius triggers Leo by being unpredictable, aloof, or hyper logical. Leo feels dismissed. Aquarius feels smothered. The tension, validation versus independence. Virgo and Pisces, control versus surrender. Virgo triggers Pisces by being analytical, realistic, and precise. Pisces triggers Virgo by being intuitive, chaotic, and boundaryless. Here's the deeper layer. Pisces exposes Virgo's fear of uncertainty. Virgo exposes Pisces' fear of facing reality. This opposition is one of the most psychologically charged because it's about the tension between the physical world and the spiritual world. Why do oppositions trigger you so deeply? Oppositions reveal your blind spots, your shortcomings, your insecurities, and the part of yourself you're not fully developed in. When you encounter your opposite sign in a friend, partner, coworker, or even a stranger, something in you sits up. You recognize something familiar and uncomfortable because on some level you need what they embody, but you're afraid of it too. Oppositions are attract and repel dynamics. They feel magnetic and irritating at the same time. You want what they have, you resent what they have, and you don't know how to integrate it yet. That's why this pairing produces some of the strongest triggers in astrology. Chapter 3: Elemental Triggers. When emotional languages clash. While oppositions trigger you by mirroring the parts of yourself you avoid, elemental clashes trigger you because they speak an emotional language you don't naturally understand. Each element experiences the world through a different filter. Fire experiences life through passion and instinct. Earth experiences life through practicality and stability. Air experiences life through logic and ideas. Water experiences life through emotion and intuition. When two people operate from completely different elements, misunderstandings happen fast and deeply. Let's break down the elemental dynamics that tend to cause the strongest emotional reactions. Fire versus water. Why do you feel so much? Versus why don't you feel anything? This is one of the most dramatic and emotional clashes. Fire signs react fast, express loudly, move on quickly. Water signs feel deeply, process slowly, and hold emotional memory. Fire triggers water by being too blunt, too quick, too detached from the emotional impact. Water triggers fire by being too sensitive, too heavy, or too emotionally demanding. Underneath this tension, water wants safety. Fire wants freedom. Fire feels slowed down. Water feels overlooked. Both feel misunderstood. Air versus water. This is the clash between the mind and the heart. Air signs communicate logically and detach to gain clarity. Water signs communicate emotionally and feel before they think. Water triggers air by making things too personal. Air triggers water by making things too impersonal. Water says, you're not present. Air says, you're overwhelming. The trigger? Air feels emotionally trapped. Water feels emotionally abandoned. And then there's earth versus fire, reckless versus rigid. Earth signs value stability, practicality, routines, plans, and results. Fire signs value spontaneity, passion, risk, and movement. To earth, fire feels chaotic. To fire, earth feels limiting. Earth triggers fire by slowing momentum, asking for structure, or demanding responsibility. Fire triggers earth by breaking rules, changing plans, or making impulsive choices. The deeper issue, earth is trying to create safety. Fire is trying to create possibility. Their motives are good, but their methods clash. Air versus earth. Too boring versus too unrealistic. This is the clash between ideas and execution. Air signs move mentally, thinking, talking, brainstorming. Earth signs move materially, building, securing, grounding. Air triggers earth by being inconsistent or impractical. Earth triggers air by being controlling or pessimistic. Air feels stifled. Earth feels destabilized. It's the tension between what's possible and what's realistic. And both sides think they're the sensible one. Why elemental triggers feel so personal? Because elements shape the core of how you feel, think, react, make decisions, handle conflict, express affection, process life. Sometimes it's not that the other person is wrong, it's that they're speaking an emotional language you don't naturally speak, and it creates a subconscious sense of threat or misunderstanding. Elemental triggers don't expose your shadow like oppositions do. Instead, they expose your emotional limitations, the areas you don't naturally know how to navigate, and that discomfort alone is enough to trigger you. Chapter 4, Modality Triggers. When your rhythms clash. While oppositions reflect your mirror traits and elemental clashes reveal your emotional languages, modality triggers are about energy rhythms, the way you move through life, make decisions, and act on your intentions. The zodiac is divided into three modalities. Cardinal signs are the initiators, the starters, and the movers. Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn carry the energy of new beginnings and momentum. Fixed signs are the stabilizers and the maintainers. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius bring persistence, consistency, and the power to hold things together. Mutable signs are the adapters and transformers. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces embody flexible energy that helps us transition, evolve, and adjust to change. Each modality has its own pace and style, and when two different modalities collide, tension and triggers happen naturally. Cardinal versus fixed. Why won't you move? Why are you pushing me? Cardinal signs start things they push, initiate, and demand action. Fixed signs maintain things. They resist change, hold on, and protect stability. Cardinal triggers fixed by feeling blocked, slowed, or frustrated. Fixed triggers cardinal by resisting, refusing, or standing firm. This is the classic push pull dynamic. It can feel infuriating, but it also teaches patience, timing, and respect for boundaries. Fixed versus mutable. Why are you inconsistent? Why are you so rigid? Mutable signs adapt. They flow, change plans, and respond to circumstances. Fixed signs resist change and expect consistency. Mutable triggers. Fixed by feeling stuck or restricted. Fixed triggers. Mutable by feeling trapped or constrained. This dynamic can be uncomfortable because it forces both sides to acknowledge how they approach flexibility versus stability, mutable versus cardinal. Why are you so controlling? Why are you so unpredictable? Mutable signs go with the flow. They wait, adapt, and respond. Cardinal signs take charge, initiate, and push forward. Mutable triggers, cardinal by feeling rushed, pressured, or forced into decisions. Cardinal triggers mutable by feeling resisted, delayed, or indecisive. Here, the trigger lies in timing and pacing. The cardinal wants action, the mutable wants reflection. Why modality triggers matter. Modality triggers aren't about morality, personality, or compatibility. They're about the way two people experience life and energy itself. They teach patience, they teach flexibility, they teach timing and flow. When two different modalities interact, it often feels irritating, exhausting, or energizing in ways you can't explain because your nervous system is processing a rhythm it isn't naturally used to. And this tension, it's exactly what makes modality triggers so psychologically transformative. Chapter 5, Shadow Sign Triggers the Darkest Mirror. If oppositions are mirrors and elemental and modality clashes are about differences in emotional language or energy rhythm, then shadow sign triggers go even deeper. These are the signs that activate the parts of yourself you try hardest to hide, your fears, insecurities, and unacknowledged impulses. They don't just irritate you, they make you feel exposed, vulnerable, or even afraid of your own reactions. Shadow signs are not your opposite, they're the parts of your personality you deny, repress, or avoid, and they appear in other people as mirrors you cannot ignore. Libra, triggered by Scorpio. Libra fears intensity, confrontation, and emotional depth. Scorpio exposes Libra's avoidance, forcing them to confront the messy, emotional truth. This results in Libra feeling judged, drained, or overwhelmed, but the reflection is real. Scorpio shows them what they're avoiding in themselves. Pisces fears criticism, judgment, and reality itself. Virgo exposes inefficiency, messiness, and self deception. This results in Pisces feeling exposed, defensive, or anxious because Virgo mirrors what Pisces is denying in themselves. Leo triggered by Capricorn. Leo fears restriction, being controlled, or not being admired. Capricorn exposes responsibility, structure, and detachment. This results in Leo feeling suppressed, frustrated, or unseen. But the reflection forces growth in discipline and perspective. Sagittarius fears inconsistency, superficiality, or limitation. Gemini exposes curiosity, adaptability, and restless energy. This results in Sagittarius feeling irritated, impatient, or misunderstood because Gemini mirrors their own avoidance of flexibility. Why our shadow triggers are so intense. Shadow triggers can feel personal even when they're not. They can provoke strong emotional reactions like anger, jealousy, anxiety, or even obsession, forcing you to face parts of yourself you've neglected. Unlike elemental or modality triggers, which are mostly external friction, shadow triggers cut straight to your inner psychological core. These are the triggers that stick with you long after the interaction is over. They feel fated, unavoidable, magnetic. How do you recognize a shadow trigger? You feel exposed, judged, or anxious around someone. You have instant, visceral reactions you can't rationalize. The person seems to bring out the worst or most hidden side of you. You can't stop thinking about them, even if they aren't doing anything wrong. The key to shadow triggers is understanding. It's not about the other person, it's about what they reveal in you. When you can see that, shadow triggers stop being purely painful. They become tools for self awareness, growth, and integration. Shadow sign triggers are the most psychologically charged, the most transformative, and the most unforgettable. They are the people who hold up a mirror to your soul, the mirror you didn't know you needed, and the mirror you might have feared looking into. Now that we've covered oppositions, elemental clashes, modality conflicts, and shadow triggers, let's bring everything back to you. Your birth chart isn't just a bunch of symbols on a wheel. It's the blueprint of your emotional and psychological patterns. And when you understand it, you can pinpoint exactly which signs are most likely to trigger you, why they trigger you, and in which parts of your life it tends to show up. Your moon governs your inner world, your feelings, your instincts, and how you emotionally respond to people. Because of that, signs that clash with your moon are usually the fastest and strongest emotional triggers. A Sagittarius moon might get frustrated with a Virgo who focuses on rules, details, or the right way to do things. Look at the element and the modality of the people around your moon. You'll start to see a pattern in who activates your emotional friction the most. Saturn is where we experience structure, discipline, and life lessons. So when someone activates your Saturn placement, it often triggers feelings of shame, fear, inadequacy, or defensiveness. For example, if your Saturn is in Pisces, a Virgo may unintentionally trigger you with their criticism or structure because it exposes your own struggles with discipline, boundaries, or staying grounded. Saturn triggers feel heavy, but they're meant to teach. They show you the areas where you're meant to grow stronger and more mature. The seventh, eighth, and 12th houses, hidden activation points. These three houses hold some of the most powerful yet subtle trigger zones in your chart. The seventh house rules partnerships and people who mirror your relationship patterns. The eighth house reveals psychological triggers around intimacy, trust, control, and shared power. The 12th house taps into hidden or karmic patterns, the triggers that feel mysterious, overwhelming, or unavoidable. People whose planets fall into these houses or who activate the rulers of these houses often show up in your life as mirrors. They push you into deeper self awareness, sometimes whether you want it or not. Hard aspects, especially squares, create natural tension in your chart. They're uncomfortable, but they're also growth oriented. Any sign that squares your sun, moon, Venus, or Mars is likely to trigger you because they highlight qualities you struggle with or avoid. For example, if you're a Taurus sun with Scorpio placement squaring you, you may feel challenged, defensive, or even intensely drawn to Scorpio individuals. They pull out your buried fears around vulnerability, intimacy, or losing control. Now let's put together your personal trigger map. Your moon shows your emotional reactions. Saturn shows the lessons and friction points. Your seventh, eighth, and 12th houses reveal the deeper, more subconscious triggers. Hard aspects show the immediate, unavoidable points of tension, and shadow triggers reveal the parts of yourself you deny or suppress. Once you map these out, all those confusing or your emotionally charged interactions suddenly start to make sense. Triggers aren't attacks. They're mirrors, they're teachers, and sometimes they're guides pulling you toward your next level of growth. Your chart shows you exactly where to look and why certain people or signs feel so unavoidable in your life. Why they appear during key transits. Triggers don't show up out of nowhere. They tend to surface at very specific moments. Moments when your psyche is ready for growth, change, or a deeper awakening. Astrology teaches us that timing is everything, and certain transits amplify trigger dynamics, making some people feel unavoidable or even fated. A Saturn return happens around ages 29 to 30, and again around 58 to 60. During this period, life brings situations and people who reflect unresolved responsibilities or long standing patterns. Anyone who triggers you during this time is not a coincidence. They're highlighting gaps in your boundaries, your commitments, or your emotional maturity. Saturn returns bring the teachers you didn't know you needed, and they often show up in the form of emotionally challenging people. Pluto transits strip away illusions and expose buried power dynamics. This is the season when shadow triggers become unavoidable. Someone might enter your life with an intensity that's hard to ignore, pulling up fears, desires, or insecurities you haven't fully faced. For example, a strong Scorpio or Pluto influence during a transit might attract a person who mirrors your struggles around control, intimacy, or surrender. Their presence feels intense, but it's meant to transform you. The North Node represents the direction you're meant to grow toward. The South Node represents your past patterns and habits. During nodal returns, you may meet people who feel strangely familiar, magnetic, or frustrating because they activate karmic themes tied to your soul's evolution. These individuals either pull you forward into growth or push you to finally break old cycles. Eclipses are like cosmic spotlights. They hit sensitive areas of your chart, angles, houses, or personal planets, and suddenly something in your life gets activated. This is when new people can enter abruptly, bringing emotional or psychological triggers that accelerate your growth. Progressed moon shifts can create similar activation, but more subtly. They signal changes in your emotional needs and therefore changes in what or who triggers you. When someone triggers you during a major transit, it's almost never random. It's your psyche being stretched, asking you to become more aware, more integrated, and more aligned. Even the painful triggers have purpose. These people function as astrological teachers. They appear at the exact moment you're ready, consciously or unconsciously, to learn the lesson. Triggers aren't accidents, they're time mirrors aligned with the rhythm of the cosmos, pushing you to evolve and reclaim the parts of yourself you've neglected or avoided. By now, you can probably see that triggers aren't random annoyances, they're reflections, they're mirrors, and honestly, sometimes they're mirrors you really don't want to look into. But here's the key: triggers are opportunities. If you know how to work with them, they can accelerate your self awareness, emotional intelligence, and personal growth. The first step is simply noticing your reaction. When someone triggers you, ask yourself, why am I feeling irritated? Why am I anxious? Why am I defensive? Most of the time, the person isn't doing anything intentionally wrong. They're reflecting a part of yourself you haven't fully acknowledged, your shadow, your unhealed patterns, or your emotional blind spots. Recognition gives you power. Once you see the trigger clearly, it loses its ability to control you. Triggers usually fall into a few main categories: oppositions, qualities you lack or avoid; elemental clashes, emotional languages you don't naturally speak; modality conflicts, rhythms of energy you misunderstand or resist; shadow signs, denied traits, or suppressed impulses. When you know which type of trigger you're dealing with, you can connect your reaction directly to the lesson behind it. Integration means taking the message and using it to evolve instead of reacting on autopilot. If a Scorpio triggers your fear of emotional intensity, practice honesty and depth. If a Virgo triggers your avoidance of responsibility, practice structure and accountability. If a Gemini irritates your rigidity, practice flexibility and open mindedness. Triggers highlight your emotional, mental, or energetic gaps. Filling those gaps helps you respond consciously, not react unconsciously. So, let's recap. Some zodiac signs trigger you not because of who they are, but because of what they reflect back to you: your shadows, your unhealed patterns, and the parts of yourself you've avoided or denied. We explored oppositions, the mirror signs that reveal what you resist; elemental clashes, the emotional languages you don't naturally speak; modality conflicts, when your energetic rhythms collide; shadow triggers, the deepest, most psychologically intense mirrors of all. And most importantly, we talked about how triggers can become your greatest teachers when you recognize them, understand them, and actually integrate the lessons they bring. Your triggers aren't obstacles, they're pathways. Pathways into self awareness, emotional mastery, and real personal evolution. Triggers have a strange way of revealing the places within us that are still tender, not to shame us, not to challenge us, but to show us where our inner growth is happening. In that sense, they're less like obstacles, more like signals, signals that something important inside you is shifting, awakening, or coming into focus.